Part 142. Amnesiac. Bigshot remembers only me, the boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 1411. The operation lasted 8 hours, and the door to the operating room was opened at 8:30 p.m. At that moment, he didn't dare to step forward or leave. His fearful mentality made his feet feel as if nails were driven into them. It wasn't until he saw Susie smiling a little that he breathed a sigh of relief. The surgery went well. Like an ascetic walking in the desert, he finally saw the oasis, and ecstasy swept through his body. Wen Qiao didn't know how long she slept. When she woke up, she saw Fu Nanli sitting aside, closing her eyes slightly and looking at the clock on the wall. It was already 6 o'clock the next morning. Fu Nanli woke up as soon as Wen Qiao moved. "How are you feeling?" Wen Qiao also had various tubes inserted into his body, and a needle inserted into the back of his hand for infusion. "I don't know what's going on, I feel numb. The anesthetic effect hasn't worn off yet. It was raining outside the window, and my uncle came in to talk about the surgery. Everything went smoothly." Wen Qiao was in a daze. What he thought was so difficult at first was actually done. She will be a truly free person from now on, and Fu Nanli can feel at ease. Susie stood by the bed and said to Fu Nanli, "Mr. Fu, why don't you stop seeing Akiao from today on and see if..." Fu Nanli's face suddenly darkened. "There's no need to stop me from seeing her so soon. If you want to test, it will take some time before starting the test." "After a while? When was it? Did Mr. Fu leave Akiao voluntarily? She just had the operation. I have to test whether she can leave you for a long time. So, how long do I need to be away from her?" "A month." Fu Nanli's face was gloomy. "A month? The longest time she could not leave me before was only 13 days. Why does she need to leave me for a month?" "Of course it's for testing. I hope Mr. Fu can cooperate. If 13 days is not the number of days that triggers her disease, if it is 14 or 15 days or longer, I need to extend the testing span." Fu Nanli's whole body was filled with chills. "I understand, I hope you can take good care of her. If something really goes wrong, Susie needs to make amends immediately. He understands this and has to leave her temporarily. She is my niece. I will take good care of her without Mr. Fu having to say anything." After saying that, he left the ward, and there were only 2 people left inside. "I will live in my apartment, which is not far from you, but I won't be able to see you this month. If anything happens, ask your brother-in-law to call me immediately." Wen Qiao nodded. "I understand." Mr. Fu narrowed his eyes and looked at her. "Why do I feel that you are not reluctant to give up at all?" Wen Qiao smiled. "It's not a matter of life and death, isn't it just a month? Let's video chat every day, young master, we won't do Qianyao drama, okay?" Fu Nanli pinched her face. This girl was really annoying. But he had no choice but to leave unwillingly. Fu Nanli was not a person who thought too much, but after leaving, he felt all kinds of unfounded worries. There were various worries, including worries that Wen Qiao's temperament would change after the blood exchange. This was not impossible. And if the operation goes well, she won't have to rely on him so much anymore. She doesn't have the character to rely on others. If she doesn't have that kind of relationship to forcibly bind her, this girl won't go wild to the ends of the earth. Mr. Fu simply couldn't sleep at night. Wen Qiao was very calm. After staying in the hospital for a week, all her body functions recovered well, and Susie took her home. Amnesiac. Bigshot remembers only me, the boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 1412. Except for her brother-in-law, no one in the family knew that she had just undergone a major operation. Susie had always been vaguely worried because Hizue took the initiative to send blood. He had never understood it. He was always worried that there was something hidden in it. So he had to do a comprehensive physical examination for Akiao every day, from blood to heartbeat to various rejection reactions in organs. No problem. All the best. Day by day, Susie gradually felt relieved. Why did Hizue take the initiative to give you blood? It was raining outside, and Wen Qiao went to bed early. Susie took her blood pressure and asked casually. Wen Qiao put his other arm behind his head. Can you believe it? He said he found me to be his heir. Is there something wrong with me? Susie frowned. This could indeed be a reasonable reason. Hizue was a cold-hearted person who always wanted to be strong. His Akiao did meet Hizue's preferences in all aspects, so it was not impossible to choose her as his heir. Then what did you say? I said I wasn't interested. Well, having said that, I'm afraid he won't give up. Maybe he will continue to persist. He is a person who never gives up until he achieves his goal. Susie felt relieved knowing that Hizue had a certain purpose in helping Akiao. He was afraid that Hizue would do something unclear and make him confused. How many days have it been? Susie, 7 days. Wen Qiao raised his forehead, only 7 days. Susie narrowed his eyes, you can't live without him. Wen Qiao smiled guiltily, after all, we have been together before. Susie touched her head, hold on for 1 month. If nothing happens after 1 month, I won't care about you. Wen Qiao nodded, I understand. On the crew, Sulu was filming a TV show. The floor manager ran in and whispered a few words to the assistant director. The assistant director was in a hurry and shouted to Mr. Deodo Sheng, take a rest first, Sulu, come here. Sulu walked up to the assistant director, who whispered, Mr. Yao's wife is here, please stay away first. This TV was invested by Yao Zhangmuo, and the director, deputy director, and producer were all his people. Naturally, he knew the relationship between Sulu and Yao Zhangmuo. He didn't want the big house and the little wife to have a direct conflict, so he asked Sulu to avoid it first. Although Sulu was unwilling to do so, she had to walk to her RV. As soon as she was halfway there, someone called her. Sulu. Looking back, I saw that it was really Yao Zhangmuo's wife, Huang Li. She was 46 years old. She was average looking. She had too much hyaluronic acid on her face and was extremely stiff. However, she was dressed richly and had a condescending air in her every move. Excuse me, are you? Sulu asked, pretending to be stupid. Huang Li chuckled softly, why are you still pretending? My husband, Yao Zhangmuo, invested a lot of money in your TV series. You don't know me? I am his wife. Sulu pretended to be weak, Mr. Yao is the producer of this TV, but I. A slap hit Sulu directly on the face. Okay, don't be a cousin and still have to erect a memorial arch. I can't bear to be a white lotus like you. You candidly said that you had an affair with Yao Zhangmuo. I still respect you. How could Sulu admit it in public? She covered her face and said, Madam, I don't know what you are talking about. Huang Li is not a light-hearted person. She is a well-known elder sister on the road. She waved her hand and several tough men came up. Sulu was a little panicked, what are you doing? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me, the boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 1413. Nothing to do, just a few words. The leading man slapped her against the car door and fell to the ground. Embarrassed. Sulu gritted her teeth. Being a lover was really risky. Sulu was beaten violently on the set, leaving bruises all over her body. Huang Li finally said, Little sister, I advise you not to be too ambitious and leave Yao Zhangmu as soon as possible, otherwise I will not stand idly by, you know. Sulu lost all face and everyone on the crew pointed at her. Huang Li and the others walked away, but it was the director who put her in the RV. In the evening, Sulu returned home, and Yao Zhangmu came back soon. Seeing her covered with wounds, Yao Zhangmu was also very angry. That woman is really lawless. Don't worry, she won't dare to do anything to you again. Sulu cried and said, she is so cruel, why don't you divorce her? Yao Zhangmu comforted her, for people of our status, we cannot divorce after love has passed. There are too many things involved. You are also a member of this circle, don't you understand? Sulu cried and cried, I don't care, I don't want to live this kind of sneaky life anymore. Yao Zhangmu's face turned cold, don't make trouble. I can give you the resources for another movie. I will give you whatever you deserve, but you try not to conflict with Huang Li, do you understand? Yao Zhangmu just comforted her for a few words and then left. Sulu completely understood that she was just a pawn of Yao Zhangmu. If she didn't fight for herself, she would be kicked away by Yao Zhangmu in the end. She sent a message to remind Yao Zhangmu that she had learned about some of his dirty tricks behind making movies. After this message was sent to Yao Zhangmu came again the next day. I thought about it all night and decided to divorce Huang Li. After the divorce, I will marry you. Sulu felt proud. Sure enough, the man still had to push her, otherwise he would never know how powerful she was. Then when can you divorce her? You have to give me some time. She and I have too much joint property and it needs to be divided. That woman is not easy to mess with. The negotiations will also take some time. 1 month, I'll give you 1 month, you must divorce her. Even though Yao Zhangmu is in his 40s, which is a bit old, he is a real boss after all. After she marries him, she will become famous, and at least she will be able to gain a firm foothold in the entertainment industry. 1 month is a bit tight, but I'll try my best. Sulu began to dream, feeling that she would soon become a master. 20 days later, unexpectedly, rumors suddenly spread on the internet, saying that Jinhee Company was suspected of behind-the-scenes operations and that the artists were suspected of breaking the law. Jinhee Entertainment is the economic company opened by Yao Zhangmu to Sulu. At first, there were only a few people discussing this melon on the internet, and Sulu didn't take it seriously. Later, a lot of evidence suddenly pointed to her. She immediately panicked, and some marketing accounts began to post evidence that Sulu was involved in illegal operations. Sulu was so frightened that she stopped filming, asked the driver to take her back, and then called Yao Zhangmu. Yao Zhangmu seemed to have lost contact with him. The melon on the internet is like a snowball, getting bigger and bigger, and all the evidence only points to her alone. Sulu gritted her teeth. How could she be so capable? At this point, she could finally see clearly. Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me, the boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 1414. Yao Zhangmu pushed her out to be used as cannon fodder. This old man was so cruel. She really regretted it. If she had known better, she would not have clung to such a powerful person. She would have been a small star in the entertainment industry and not become a pawn in the hands of capital. Or maybe going forward, don't enter the entertainment industry at all, but stay in the classical music industry and be her pianist. How did she end up in this situation where she was being teased and had to cover for others? With so much capital, even if she had 100 mouths, she would still be unable to defend herself. People on the internet had long scolded her as a scumbag. As soon as the Navy started to move, she became the cannon fodder, and no one wanted to listen to what she had to say. She became a French coffee maker. But Yao Zhangmu ruthlessly chose to call the police and kill her relatives out of justice. Soon the police came and took her away. Yao Zhangmu said it would take a month to prepare for divorce. How could he be preparing for divorce? Instead, he was preparing to trick her. The chain of evidence provided by the police was too complete, and every piece of evidence pointed to Sulu. Yao Zhangmu even went to the police station to visit her and said seriously, "You are still too young and just want to take shortcuts. Why do you do something illegal?" Sulu rushed over and grabbed him by the collar. "Yao Zhangmu, you are so cruel, why do you want to harm me?" Yao Zhangmu grabbed her hand. "Reflect on yourself in prison, you know? You must change your past." Sulu gritted her teeth. She regretted it, but she was not given a chance to do it again. Her reputation and future were destroyed by her own hands. Yao Zhangmu left the police station, got into the luxury car, and curled his lips, a woman who doesn't know whether to live or die. How deep is this circle? Does her scheming skills mean she can bring down the big boss? After all, he was still too naive. It was really thanks to her that he escaped unscathed this time. There are many beautiful and young women in this circle. How could Sulu be so stupid that he would insist on her? There were different opinions on the internet, and Lu Yuyu brought Dagwa to see Wen Qiao again. Reliable news, I heard that Sulu has been detained. Wen Qiao, huh? Are you really detained? Absolutely reliable. I heard it was illegal manipulation of funds. She is very ambitious. She is involved with Yao Zhangmu and she dares to break the law. She has been blinded by desire for a long time. This ending is expected. Why do you think she is doing this? She is not a good pianist, so she has to enter the entertainment industry and work as a mistress for an old man. In the end, she got into trouble because of the old man. Tisk tisk. Wen Qiao raised his eyebrows. Let me check and go in to see her. You still want to see her? Only by understanding the situation and knowing yourself and the enemy can you win every battle. Yao Zhangmu is also a well-known boss in the entertainment industry. I may have contact with his company sooner or later in the future. So Wen Qiao found out where Sulu was being held and visited her. On a cloudy day, the light in the visiting room was dim. Sulu was sitting there in prison uniform. When Wen Qiao came in, she felt a little dazed. She obviously only saw Wen Qiao when she graduated, but she always felt like she hadn't seen her for a long time. She is getting more and more beautiful, and her temperament is outstanding. She can't help but think of Wen Qiao being ostracized by the whole school in high school. At that time, she, Sulu, was the school beauty, and Wen Qiao was nothing. But then, why did it become like this? The person she envied most was Wen Qiao. Wen Qiao was so beautiful and outstanding, and she even met a man like Fu Nanli. God gave her the best. Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me, the boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 1415. It turns out that there really is such a thing as God's beloved. Wen Qiao sat opposite her, and Sulu chuckled, "Come to see my joke." Wen Qiao raised his eyebrows. "Whatever you think, tell me how you got yourself into prison." "I'm going to say that I was wronged. Do you believe it? Talk about it." Sulu told Wen Qiao what had happened. She wanted to take revenge. Yao Zhangmu, that bitch, was ruthless and she would not let him have an easy time. Wen Qiao's expression remained calm, and he finally said, "I understand. What Sulu said is probably true. The so-called person who is about to die is good at words. She is already in jail. There is no reason to make up lies to deceive her. Moreover, she is just a small shrimp in the entertainment industry, illegally manipulating funds. How could she be qualified? It can only be said that she was not kind to others, that she was too ambitious and was being plotted against. Sulu is certainly not innocent, but Yao Zhangmu is absolutely vicious. They both belong to rival companies, and there's no guarantee that Yao Zhangmu will use the same tactics against her one day. Wen Qiao stood up and walked to the door. Sulu looked at her back with red eyes. Wen Qiao still has her great life, and she will be inside the high wall, in the dark. After all, she has reached this point. There are so many forks in the road in life. At every step, she has taken the wrong step, and she has trapped herself. You have caused yourself to be like this. Bang, the door closed, and she was guarded by the prison guards and returned to her cell. Wen Qiao pressed down his peaked cap and got into the car, feeling a little sad but didn't think much about it. Every step Sulu took was her own choice, and no one ever forced her. Even when she entered the entertainment industry, her teacher tried to persuade her, but she insisted on going her own way, refused to listen to the advice, gave up her career in classical music, and ultimately ended up like this. The car passed through the suburbs and entered the city, twisting and turning on the narrow streets of the city. Through the car window, she saw an acquaintance again. It was evening. Shen Ning was leaning against the wall, with several gangster-looking boys in front of her. This is an old building from the 1980s and 1990s. There are huge words "demolish" written on the outer walls, indicating that the houses are waiting for demolition, so there are almost no people around. There were 7 or 8 people in the gang. As soon as his eyes turned, those people began to rush forward and fight with Shen Ning. Wen Qiao immediately stopped the car and stepped forward to help Shen Ning. Shen Ning could handle it alone, but with Wen Qiao, she would be even more powerful. 7 or 8 little gangsters were beaten to pieces. Wen Qiao grabbed one with yellow hair and banged his head against the wall. At that moment, she felt a very strange emotion in her heart, and a violent aesthetic factor seemed to explode in her blood instantly. Looking at Huang Mao's blood flowing freely, she felt an inexplicable satisfaction. This sense of satisfaction could not be contained for a while. Until someone behind her held her shoulders, and in the haziness, she heard someone calling her name, "Wen Qiao, Wen Qiao." She suddenly woke up. Huang Mao's face was covered with blood, and her eyes were filled with fear. Wen Qiao was a little surprised. She was so ignorant of the importance of her actions. She just wanted to teach these gangsters a lesson, but she didn't want to beat them to death. As soon as her hand loosened, Huang Mao fell to the ground. His brothers immediately supported him and ran away in panic. Wen Qiao looked a little dazed, and Shen Ning supported her. "Are you okay? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me. The boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 1416. Wen Qiao pressed his temple. "That Huang Mao just now, won't he die?" "No, luckily I stopped you in time." "Wen Qiao, what's wrong with you?" Wen Qiao shook his head. Shen Ning drove Wen Qiao's car back home with her. There was still blood on her hands, so she went to the sink to wash her hands first, and then the two of them entered Wen Qiao's bedroom together. "You were quite scary just now," Shen Ning said bluntly. Wen Qiao frowned. "Why am I scary?" "Frankly speaking, Wen Qiao, are you sick?" Wen Qiao frowned deeper. "What do you mean?" "Emotional diseases, personality disorders, inability to control emotions, etc." "I didn't," Wen Qiao replied decisively. "Of course she didn't." Shen Ning hesitated and said, "I do." The scene where Wen Qiao beat someone to death was so similar to her, so she could not help but guess in this direction. Wen Qiao fell into silence. Shen Ning said again, "What were you thinking about when you hit someone just now?" Wen Qiao frowned. "I don't know. I didn't seem to think anything. I just thought that yellow guy deserves a beating. I want to teach him a lesson." Just as his uncle came back, Shen Ning's eyes lit up and she stopped him. Please help Wen Qiao take a look. Su Ce was nervous. Qiao, what's wrong? Are you feeling unwell? Do you need to call Fu Nanli over? Su Ce thought it was some kind of postoperative reaction. Wen Qiao waved his hand. No, uncle, I have no problem. Su Ce looked at Shen Ning. Shen Ning hesitated to speak, but Wen Qiao said coldly, okay, I'm a little tired. You all can go out. Shen Ning and Su Ce were both kicked out of the room. Su Ce is not a sensitive person and cannot detect anything. Shen Ning said, Professor Su, can I talk to you? What do you want to say? Just now Wen Qiao came across a conflict between me and some people. She helped me, but for some reason, she couldn't hold back her hand when she hit them. Su Ce said indifferently, Qiao has always been such a loyal person, but you, why are you in conflict with others again? Are you a student or some kind of gangster? Shen Ning. Why did you get angry? Okay, from now on you should fight less and don't get Qiao in trouble. Shen Ning. The feeling of being unable to argue. But Professor Su obviously didn't want to waste any more words with her, so she couldn't say anything more and left aggrievedly. Su Ce didn't take this matter seriously. It was impossible for emotional extremes to become a sequelae of blood transfusion and bone marrow transfusion. This was unheard of. In the room, under the dim sunset, Wen Qiao was sitting on a chair with his legs bent against the desk. There was still a little residual blood on his right thumb that had not been cleaned. She frowned, picked up a tissue, and wiped it vigorously. The white tissue was stained with bright red blood, which was a bit dazzling, and Wen Qiao looked a little dazed. Thinking of what Shen Ning said just now, can't you control your emotions? This is impossible. She has always been a calm and self-possessed person, even a little too rational. There was no way she could do what Shen Ning said. What about just now? It was indeed Huang Mao who deserved a beating just now, so she didn't need to think too much about it. Throwing away the tissue, she got up and left the room. During dinner, Su Ce asked a few questions and checked her body again. Su Ce's finger was on her pulse. Wen Qiao was a little nervous, so uneasy that he didn't even dare to breathe heavily. Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me, the boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 1417. Finally, Su Ce let go of his hand, and Wen Qiao asked nervously, how was it? Su Ce smiled slightly, everything is normal. You can see Fu Nanli in 5 or 6 days. Wen Qiao breathed a sigh of relief. Sure enough, she was worried too much. In the next few days, everything went normally. Fu Nanli received a video call almost every day except on the plane. The 1-month deadline has come, and Wen Qiao's body has no problems. Moreover, it has been confirmed that she does not need to stay with Fu Nanli to extend her life. She is a free woman. Wen Qiao was very excited. When he came out of the alley, he saw a black Rolls-Royce parked outside. Joer. The car window was half open, the man got out of the back seat, opened the door for her, and Wen Qiao got into the car. The scent of the man she hadn't seen for a month lingered in her nose, making her feel at ease. She was held in Fu Nanli's arms. When the man spoke, his chest vibrated slightly, which inexplicably gave her a sense of security. How is your health? Wen Qiao raised his eyebrows, everything is fine. That's good. He took her to his apartment. There had been no visit from the hostess for a month. This big house had a cold atmosphere. It was just a hotel where Fu Nanli rested. What do you want to eat? I'll cook it for you. Young Master Fu was about to wash his hands and make soup again. Wen Qiao was a little clingy and hugged his waist from behind. I like to eat whatever you do. Fu Nanli raised his eyebrows. If Qiao Er could remain so clingy after the operation, this would be a good sequelae of the operation. Fu Nanli took out some ingredients from the refrigerator and made 2 dishes and 1 soup. He had used up all the recipes in his mind. The two sat opposite each other and had a warm dinner. "Have you missed me this month?" Wen Qiao tilted his head and smiled. "What do you think?" Fu Nanli grabbed her ankle and put her foot on his lap. "I took the initiative to call you, but you never called," he said. His tone seemed a little aggrieved. Wen Qiao smiled sweetly. "I will take the initiative to call you in the future." But while speaking, she subconsciously thought that she had not been like this before. She would often take the initiative to make video calls to Fu Nanli, and she was even more proactive at that time. Her mind was a little confused, and she couldn't sort out her thoughts for a while. After helping Fu Nanli clean the dishes, he took the bowls in the dishwasher and prepared to put them in the cabinet, but accidentally dropped a bowl. Wen Qiao immediately bent down to pick it up. His finger was cut by a sharp fragment. The bright red blood immediately flowed out and dripped on the white porcelain fragments. Wen Qiao's mind buzzed, his body became a little hot, and some unfamiliar restless emotions were ignited at this moment. She was about to pick up the fragments, but her hand was held by Fu Nanli. "Why are you so careless?" After saying that, he pulled her up, turned on the faucet, and washed her wounds with cold water. Wen Qiao looked back at the shards of glass on the ground, which were stained with dazzling red, eerie and attractive, making people inexplicably want to smash them all. "Qiao." Fu Nanli frowned and looked at the person in his arms, and shouted for the 3rd time before she came back to her senses. Come here, I'll give you some medicine." Fu Nanli took her to the living room. The floor-to-ceiling windows were open. It was raining outside, and the wind carried a moist breath against her face. Only then did she wake up a little, and felt a sharp pain on her fingers. Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me. The boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 1418. Pain. Fu Nanli glanced at her. "I still know it hurts." Wen Qiao nodded. "Well, it hurts a lot." Fu Nanli used a cotton swab to apply some povidone iodine on her, then tore off a band-aid and put it on her. "Be careful in the future." Wen Qiao responded dully, "Yes, I understand." Wen Qiao felt a little strange. She didn't believe it when Shen Ning said she couldn't control her emotions, but just now. She tried to think back. She seemed to be a little greedy for the violent aesthetics and wanted to see more blood. Once this thought formed in her mind, she was shocked. How could she have such an idea? I had never felt this emotion in the first 22 years of my life. She couldn't understand why she suddenly couldn't control her emotions. The hand was only slightly injured, but Fu Nanli acted as if she was paralyzed. He personally helped her take a bath, then wrapped her in a towel and carried her back to the bedroom. Mr. Fu, who had not seen him for a month, was inevitably enthusiastic. Wen Qiao did some physical exercise for a while, but he temporarily forgot some of the previous unpleasantness. "I thought, maybe my worries are unfounded." Late at night, Wen Qiao huddled in Fu Nanli's arms, feeling a sense of home and security, which allowed her to temporarily forget some of her worries. "Are you okay?" Wen Qiao chuckled. "There is no reason that after the operation, my body will be made of paper, right?" Fu Nanli's chuckle came, and his warm breath made Wen Qiao's ears itch. "I'm just afraid that if something happens, we have to be separated for a longer time. I can't bear it." Wen Qiao hugged his waist. "No, we will never be separated again." It was a long sleep. Wen Qiao didn't dream much before, and the quality of his sleep was very good, especially when he was next to Fu Nanli. It was bright all night. But this night, I had several dreams, and each dream was darker and bloodier than the last. She dreamed about Huang Mao. In the dream, no one pulled her, so she beat Huang Mao to death, and she beat the person to death with her bare hands. Huang Mao fell in a pool of blood and looked at her with wide eyes. Passers-by were watching and had different opinions. The crime is not worthy of death, so why did you beat someone to death? This little girl looks so soft and weak, why is she so cruel? Yeah, it's too scary. Did you see that the force when I hit someone just now was so scary? At the back of the dream, Wen Qiao could even feel that she was dreaming, but she couldn't wake up. She was trapped in that dream, struggling, hesitating, afraid, and panicking. Qiao-er, Qiao-er. At the end of the crowd, the sky was bright, and there was someone standing there, like a guide to the peak of life, and he gently called her name. Hearing the sound, Wen Qiao felt like a drowning man seeing the light on the sea. Suddenly, she opened her eyes, and Fu Nanli was looking at her with her head propped up on her side. Zhou-er, are you having a nightmare? It turned out that he was really calling her. Wen Qiao turned to look out the window. It was already dark and it turned out to be morning. Her voice was a little hoarse, and there was cold sweat on her forehead. Well, it was a nightmare. What did you dream about? Just now he heard her mumbling something incoherent, and saw her clutching the quilt tightly with both hands, with a painful expression on her face, so he gently patted her face and called her name. When Qiao's mouth was dry, he licked his lips, and his eyes drooped. I still remember it very clearly in the dream, but now I suddenly forgot it all. I don't know what I was dreaming about. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me, the boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 1419. Fu Nanli hugged the person into his arms. It's a dream, just a dream. Don't think too much. Wen Qiao said dully, yeah. After that, I couldn't sleep anymore. After breakfast, Fu Nanli personally sent the person home. Wen Qiao didn't dare to tell others for a while, fearing that his family would be worried and that his uncle would fall into another kind of torture. After thinking about it, she sent a message to Hizawei. Where? Huihe the other side replied quickly. Wen Qiao immediately drove there and arrived at Huihe Company. Teresa greeted him respectfully into the office. What would you like to drink, Miss Wen? Wen Qiao said coldly, no need for anything. After the door closed, Wen Qiao walked to Hizawei's desk. The man put out the cigarette in his hand. It's early in the morning. Is there anything important, Miss Wen? Wen Qiao lazily sat in the chair, his long legs crossed, and his momentum was not lost. Do you know if there will be any side effects if I do a blood transfusion? She asked tentatively. Hizawei smiled. Your uncle is the world's top famous doctor. If you have questions about this, why don't you ask him? I'm not a doctor, so I don't know. Wen Qiao's cold eyes roamed his face, as if trying to find the loopholes in his words. The last 3 bloods were provided by you. I don't know who the 3 of them are. What? Do you have any sequelae now? Hizawei asked. Wen Qiao chuckled softly. I just ask you, who was the last person to donate blood to me? Hizawei raised his eyebrows. You ask me, do you have to answer? Even if Miss Wen has the support of the Fu family, she doesn't need to be so condescending in front of me. I, Hizawei, am not afraid of the Fu family. A cold light flashed in Wen Qiao's eyes. This Hizawei was making mud for her. Wen Qiao stood up coldly, and Hizawei smiled coquettishly. Are you leaving just now? Mister, he is uncooperative inside and outside his words. I can't ask you anything. Are you just here to have lunch? It's not bad to have lunch. Our company's work meals are also famous in the industry. Many people want to come in for work meals but can't. Wen Qiao chuckled and walked out, holding the golden door handle in his hand. It's my blood, a man's deep voice came from behind. Wen Qiao's face suddenly darkened, he let go of the doorknob, and looked back. It was a cloudy day and the light was dim. He was sitting with his backlight, and he seemed to be smiling. His smile was so cold that it made Wen Qiao shudder. She walked over and confirmed, "What did you say?" "I said, the last tube of blood is mine. I can be considered your savior after all." For a moment, Wen Qiao's mind felt like it was exploding, and he was unable to think calmly and rationally. "Your blood type is the same as mine." "Of course, why else do you think I would bother collecting so many people with rare blood types? That information is difficult to collect." "Why didn't you tell me in advance?" Wen Qiao clenched his fists, and the anger bursting out of his eyes would scare anyone who saw it, except Hezawei. He was still smiling, holding the newly lit cigarette in his slender fingers, with the word fear written all over his body. "Tell you in advance? Why? If I tell you in advance, won't you accept my blood?" Wen Qiao said quietly. To be fair, it seemed that even if she knew it was Hezawei's blood, she would still choose to have surgery. After all, she didn't have a god's perspective, so she didn't know that she would become a little strange after the operation. Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me, the boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 1420. Why don't you speak? Wen Qiao said nothing, turned around and walked out. A man's cheerful voice came from behind. "I answered your question, so what about my question, aren't you going to answer it?" He was answered by a slamming of the door. Hezawei laughed out loud, and Teresa came in. It was the first time she saw her husband smiling like this, and she didn't dare to speak for a while. Hezawei's smile only lasted for a moment, and soon subsided, as if only Wen Qiao could make him laugh. He grimaced and lit the cigarette ashes in his hand. "Make an appointment with Mr. Wen for lunch." Teresa had the word embarrassment written on her face. "Sir, isn't this asking questions knowingly?" Miss Wen just slammed the door and left with a livid face. "Can you agree to have dinner together at noon?" She dialed the number, and sure enough, she got the cold and ruthless word "not available." "It's expected." Teresa looked at the man on the boss's chair anxiously. Hezawei had a sullen face. "Why don't you say anything?" Miss Wen said. Say what?" She said she was busy with work and was not free at the moment. She would make an appointment next time. "Oh? I see you hung up the phone quickly, enough for her to say so much." Teresa was too scared to speak, but Hezawei waved his hand. "Go down." When Wen Qiao returned home, she was still in a daze. There was Hezawei's blood. So was it because Hezawei's blood was flowing in her body that she behaved violently? Damn it! When his uncle came back, Wen Qiao told him the situation, and Susi cursed a few words to congratulate Ziwei. At that time, he tested the blood and found that there was nothing wrong with the blood. He just forgot to ask who the blood belonged to. He thought that no matter who it belonged to, as long as it could be used, it should be fine. Who would have thought that such a situation would exist? "What symptoms do you have now?" Wen Qiao shrugged. "My physical condition is not bad, but I seem to have been infected by some of Hezawei's violence. Especially when I see blood, I can't control my desire for violence." Susi took Wen Qiao to his laboratory and gave her a comprehensive physical examination. "The indicators are normal in all aspects. You probably have to rely on your own willpower to overcome symptoms like yours." Wen Qiao adjusted his sleeves. "My own willpower? Well, it's like schizophrenia. If the main personality can defeat the subpersonality, it is equivalent to killing the subpersonality. All this can only be done by yourself." Wen Qiao lowered his eyes. "I don't know what to do." Susi rubbed her head. "You and Fu Nanli should also talk about this." Wen Qiao raised his eyes and looked at him. "Huh. Probably the best way is to influence with love. There is nothing I can do, Only Funanli can do it. In the past, Susii's attitude towards Funanli was lukewarm, and he never wanted Akiao and Funanli to be together. But because Akiao liked it, he didn't say anything. But now, Susii had no way to stop it. He understood Hizue's intention. Hizue was trying to make Achiao take over his position, so he wanted to turn Achiao into someone like him. And the only one who can keep Akiao awake is probably Funanli. When Chiao laughed out loud, "Is the power of love so effective? Uncle, do you still understand this?" Susii knocked on her head. "I don't understand love, but I know that the most important person in your heart is Funanli." When Chiao shrugged, "You are all the most important people in my heart." Susii rolled his eyes at her. "Okay, let Funanli send you a reliable bodyguard to follow you."